This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. Cris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Cris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer, and welcome to the Rocket City Retirement Show with certified financial planner Cris Wallace. Cris is president of WG Financial Group, and also joining us today, Graham Bauer. He is a relationship advisor. Richard Constantine, a certified financial planner and a relationship advisor as well. All here today to give you really good advice about retirement planning. We're hoping that there are going to be some pieces of information that you want to call about. Go in for a complimentary visit. You can call or text the word visit to 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach out to Cris. Go in for a discovery session, complimentary. Check us out on Facebook, too. Just search for WG Financial Group 256. And then remember the motto: plan, retire, play. That's what we want for you. And that's why we're here today. Find us online anytime at WGFinancialGroup.com. Cris, hello to you.
Well, hello, Luann.
So excited to be here starting our show today. Graham, hello to you.
Hey, Luann, how are you?
I'm great. And Richard.
Hey. It's great to be back.
It is always good to be here with you guys. So we always like to start our show off with some positive thinking because of all the media and the negativity we seem to hear around the world. So Graham, give us some WG positivity today, please.
Sure. I thought this story was kind of cool, and it made me a little bit excited. I don't know if it will for everybody, but I think this is pretty cool. So recently, within the last week, the Department of Transportation, along with a company called Brightline, has started working on a high-speed railway to connect Las Vegas and Los Angeles, which obviously does not benefit us much in northern Alabama at the moment. It's in preparation for the 2028 Summer Olympics. They're hoping it'll be kind of a main line of travel, but it's actually part of a larger effort that's been going on with this company for a few years. Apparently there's one open between Orlando and Miami back in 2018 that I did not know about until right about now, but I thought that was honestly really cool. It's something I'd love to see more in the United States with how expensive airline travel has gotten and stuff. It would be cool to be able to hop on a train, even though I've never been on a high-speed railway, and apparently the one they're building between Vegas and Los Angeles runs at about 200 miles an hour, which sounds kind of freaky, but also, it could be a really cool thing for transportation in the country long term.
Yeah.
Just don't connect it to Alabama. That's all I got to say.
You don't want it down there.
No.
You don't want it.
They can connect those two states. That's good. Keep it out there.
Yeah, I highly doubt that. I don't think they're going to start with Los Angeles to Las Vegas and then, why don't we do Las Vegas to Huntsville?
Yeah, that's good. Take their time.
Oh, I like that. That's cool. So Summer Olympics coming to the United States. When is that?
It's the summer 2028.
2028. Okay.
Are you going to go?
Probably, honestly.
Yeah.
Emma, my wife, is a huge Olympics fan, and I do really enjoy Olympics, especially Summer Olympics. I'm a big, I love beach volleyball, actually.
Yeah.
Those athletes are incredible. We watch a lot of volleyball. It's very entertaining.
Yeah. I love track. I love watching all the track and everything. That's always fun. So, okay. Well, that's interesting. Maybe that's a new take. Maybe that's things that is a sign of things happening in the future in our country with those high-speed trains. Thank you for that, Graham.
Yeah.
Okay. So now a little bit of an update from you, Cris, on the market. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so the first thing I'll touch on is obviously a lot of people know we record on Tuesdays. So tomorrow is the Fed rate decision. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, by the time you hear this, the decision will already be out and there will be no rate decrease tomorrow. So they're going to maintain where they're at. And I think right now the markets are kind of really repricing how long the Feds are actually going to leave the rates as, where they are currently. I think it's been tough on the bond markets. It's also, I think, been a little bit tougher on the stock markets as well. I think both were expecting rate cuts this year. And if you look at the futures, the futures are kind of pushed out till November, December before a rate hike. And really the market is now kind of just pricing in one rate hike. And if you think back to where we were at a certain point in December, there were 6 rate cuts priced into the markets. And so now the market is basically saying, okay, maybe one rate cut. And I think the Feds are in a really a pretty tough spot because the economy, when you look at the unemployment rate, it's not going up enough to be able to warrant a rate cut at this point. So the economy is still pretty decent. One of the problems that I think is really a big problem here is we've seen some pretty good wage growth. And you can look at wage growth as kind of inflationary. And what do I mean by that? Well, think about a restaurant that used to pay $15 an hour, and now they're paying $20 an hour. Well, the business isn't going to suffer, the
Right.
loss there.
Right.
That's going to be passed on to the consumer. So some of this wage growth that we've seen, while it's good in some ways, can also be inflationary. So a lot of that passes on to us. So anyway, a couple things I saw this week I thought were really interesting. So when I found this on Bloomberg, Jennifer was like, "Don't mention that on the air," and I was like, "No, it is interesting to me." So this is not, first of all, I don't condone this behavior, or I don't encourage this behavior. I don't do it, never have, never will. But daily users of marijuana are reshaping the consumer economy by buying more frozen food. And they're also ordering a lot more delivery on apps such as Bloomberg. That's a true story. Like this came off.
Hungry?
Well, I say it's true. It came from Bloomberg. So yeah, it's because
Snacks?
I guess so. I've never done it, so I don't know exactly, how that affects you, but that's what I hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw that and I was like, what? You got to be kidding me. So I found that kind of interesting. 61% of this is according to the Financial Technology Association survey. 61% of American workers are living paycheck to paycheck. Now
I believe that.
That I 100% believe.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and if you look at the Fred charts for home supplies, new home inventory is at its highest point since 2008, and you kind of wonder, well, why is that? Well, because the rates are very high right now, and that's exactly why they are as high as they are. The supply, and then the median. And this is according to the Clever Real Estate survey. The median home price in the U.S. now costs $332,000. So you need an annual income of right around $120,000 to be able to afford it with 10% down. So all of that to say, the millennials, the Gen Zs, they are definitely having a much more difficult time buying houses right now because things are just really expensive. And Graham is over there straight across from me. He knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But even rent today is just astronomically high. It's just astronomically high. And I think as you have to exercise patience in a situation like this. I would imagine, and this is kind of what I think is going to happen. I guess I'll make a little bit of a prediction. So initially, we saw, inflation coming down. It was trending down pretty good. And then now it seems like the past 2-3 months, we've run into a little bit of a stickiness. And I think some of that is what I just mentioned. You've got wage growth, and that's being passed along to the consumer. So I don't think the feds are going to raise rates anymore. But what I do believe now that we've kind of leveled off here is I believe that they will just leave them where they are for quite a while until we hit a recession. So basically, they'll drive the interest rate train right into a recession. And I believe the recession will ultimately finish off the job that they started, which was raising rates. If you think back, again, just to recap here, if you think back to when COVID happened and all of this money was pushed into the system, they pushed a lot of money in the system, even to people that didn't need the money. So it really inflated the money supply.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we had inflation pick up, which you had a lot of people with a lot of money, and supply chains were crimped off. And that's textbook inflation. And then you had the feds come in. Well, they didn't come right in. They basically said it's transitory, and they waited. And then all of a sudden they had to raise rates the fastest that they've ever raised them in history. Okay, so we've never really been in a situation like this. We have two things that have happened in the past 4 years. We had an astronomical amount of money pushed into the system, and we had the feds raise rates the fastest that they've ever raised them. Now, why is that important, and why is it different? We've never seen it before. So it is a new situation. So when we talk about the yield curve being inverted, and typically it's, I think the old data was like 18 or so months on average from the first inversion to a recession. And it's a lot longer than that now. The yield curve has been inverted for quite a while. And I think what's happened here is we still have money in the system. People are living off credit cards. There's the side hustles that are going on. Lots of people are now working their normal job. And I was literally at church, and Jen was walking with a friend of hers into church this past weekend, and she works another job. I think she's a teacher, and she talked about doing DoorDash on the weekend. That's her little side job.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so people are working, 2, sometimes 3 jobs. They're picking up these little jobs, so that's kind of propping up that consumer spending. My concern is that people are not saving enough at this point, and I think that they're spending a lot of it on the lifestyle, which is good for consumer spending, which is good for the economy. And I think some of that is helping to prop the economy up. So we've got several things at play currently where I feel like we're in a little bit different of a situation than we were. And I think it's taken a little while for me to kind of see this and kind of understand it. Used to, you'd say, oh, the yield curve's inverted. Here comes a recession. It's just a matter of a couple of months. Boom, we'll be in a recession. That's not the case because of these things that are happening right now. So again, I believe that I think the Feds will just, I think they'll just drive the inflation train right, or the rate train right into our next recession. And I think the recession will come in and kind of finish off the job. So one of the things here as we get ready to head to a break here in a minute is I was asked the question by somebody the other day in a meeting, and we were talking about, do I have enough? Have I saved enough for retirement? And at what point is enough? And I was reading or rereading a book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel over the weekend, and I was listening to it actually that morning and got into the meeting, and this particular client or prospect was talking about, how much do you know is enough? And I think as humans, we can have a tendency to be a little greedy. So there are people out there today, right now, listening to the show, they have enough. And I think as we prepare for retirement, I think it's important to know when is enough enough, so that we're not taking on like excess risk. So let's say that you've been prepping for retirement, you're 2 or 3 years out from that date at that point, and you have enough, but things have been going really well, so you want more. And that's the natural tendency is we don't want to develop FOMO, and we don't want to miss out. So we want to continue building more and more wealth. But I think there comes a time when you're planning for retirement that you have to recognize and actually mathematically figure that you have enough. And then the course of your retirement needs to change a little bit. And I think that's what we do really well at the office is identify when you have enough. And then what do you need to do from this point forward? And you can start that process by giving us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010.
The Rocket City Retirement Show will be back in just a moment.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Wait. Now, wait a little longer. Great. You may have just increased your lifetime income by tens of thousands of dollars. That's how Social Security can work for you. The longer you wait, the more money you may get. Deciding when to start taking your Social Security benefits is one of the most important retirement decisions you'll make. Cris Wallace and the team at WG Financial Group can show you the options and help make the right decision for you and your situation. Call them today, 256-937-2010. You spent decades paying in. Optimize what comes out. Cris Wallace and the WG Financial Group team can help you squeeze every penny out of your Social Security benefits. Don't wait any longer. Call now, 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government.
Get the most out of your retirement with WG Financial Group's comprehensive investment and wealth management services. While we don't fully endorse active investment management, we believe in regular portfolio adjustments to potentially achieve better returns for our clients. Schedule a meeting today by calling 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010.
Hi, we're so glad you joined us today. I'm Luann Fulmer, and I am here with Cris Wallace, Graham Bauer, and Richard Constantine. So, we've repeated these stats again and again. Thousands of baby boomers retire every single day. And by 2030, they're all going to be 65. So if baby boomers are up to bat for retirement, then that means Gen X is on deck. And we're going to get to Gen X here in just a minute, because that's you, Cris. That is you. But 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 each and every day, when you have that many people leaving that workforce at the same time, what could the potential impact be on the economy, Cris?
Well, I know that I've heard a lot of people say, well, that many people retire and you got that much money leaving the stock market, it's going to cause the economy to crash. And I've heard that by a number of people, none of which, in my opinion, have any credibility. So I think probably really the more important thing here is when these individuals leave the workforce, that's a lot of experience. And as we call it, graybeards leaving the job. And then now all of that experience is gone. And I think there's probably some value there from a corporate level. So you've got individuals that have been with companies 30, 40 years now exiting the workforce. And that experience is really important. Just from the standpoint of, we know in manufacturing, when we build a blueprint, that it doesn't always work like the blueprint says that it should work. There's always engineering changes. And I was telling somebody the other day that when I worked in the auto industry, we built a part and we would launch it, and then we would go through engineering changes and it would work its way through the alphabet. Well, we had like car parts, for exterior trim that was like part number, and then it was like DD, so it'd been through the whole alphabet several times, and now it was on DD, and it would go to EEFF as the engineering change level. So I think when you lose some of that experience, I think that can hurt corporations. And we have some clients that leave the workforce and go back as a contractor because that's just what they do, and they don't want to fully retire. They still want to work, and these companies are still willing to hire them in as contractors because they bring value because of the level of experience. So to me, that's one of the bigger items that I would be more concerned with.
Okay. So if you are part of Generation X, it's, you kind of think, it's that retirement. That's really applies to my parents, not to me. But it's going to be your turn before you know it. So Cris, or I should say Richard, I'm going to direct this question to Richard. Richard, the first Gen Xers are in their mid-50s now. Okay, they are Gen Xers were born between 1965 and about 1980. Okay, 1979, 1980. What do you want to say to them to help them make the most out of the next 10, 15 years?
Yeah, and Luann, from what I found with working with a bunch of clients in this age demographic is, you still have time, even if you're essentially starting from nothing, to really, if you want to be serious about financial planning and having a plan for your future, you still have time to really put your foot on the gas and get to the point where you and your family can maintain the same standard of living that you're living in currently.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, go ahead, Cris.
I wanted to kind of say something about that, Richard. Sure. We were in a meeting yesterday, and this gentleman came in, and he would be a Gen Xer. And we were able to have a conversation with him on the way that he was saving. So, kind of to your point is you still have time to put your foot on the gas. So this particular individual was actually saving in an IRA. So he's only can put in $8,000 a year, and he was not utilizing his 401k. And
right.
He said he told us he had excess money, right? He said he could save a crazy amount of money the next year. And we were like, well, why aren't you using the 401k as that avenue instead of the IRA? And because he was considering doing a Roth IRA, and we were talking to him and we said, hey, why are you not considering Roth 401k? Because you can put, 3 times, almost 4 times the amount of money in a Roth 401k that you can in a Roth IRA. So yeah, to your point, it's a great time to make an adjustment and kind of step on the gas if you need to.
Exactly. And because if you don't, then, the option is you're going to either work for significantly longer than most of your peers, or the other option is to have a significant step down in the quality of life that you're living right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, Cris, because we always hear, Roth IRA, Roth. You're just not going to have the difference between the 401k and IRA are just what you're investing in, right?
Well, the Roth 401k, if you use the Roth option inside the 401k, you can put, so there's limits on the 401k. So there's $23,000 a year is the contribution limit. Then you have catch up, which is $7,500, and that puts you at $30,500 for the entire year. In the Roth IRA, you can only put a maximum of $8,000. That is the most you can put in. So they're very similar from a tax perspective. The Roth IRA may give you more options to choose from if it's held at a custodian. The 401k, you're kind of limited to whatever the 401k plan offers in terms of investment vehicles. But in terms of putting in tax-free money, you can put a whole lot more in the Roth 401k. But some people have this. I don't know what it is, the stigma against their company for whatever reason, that there's this stigma against, I don't want to put my money there. Why not? You could put a lot more money there and accomplish, what you're trying to accomplish long-term much faster if you're using that employer-sponsored plan. Right.
Great. So, Richard, can Gen X even count on things like Social Security, or is the conversation completely different there?
For the most part, it's still a similar conversation. We think that the main changes in Social Security are really going to apply to the younger generation. What I mean by that is, currently Social Security has a $168,600 wage cap. And so what that actually means is any dollar that an individual earns over that wage cap, it's not taxed. It's not taxed for Social Security purposes. We anticipate that if there are going to be major changes made, the wage cap will either increase or be removed altogether.
Okay. It's currently removed altogether for Medicare. So, it wouldn't surprise me that if they wouldn't remove it all the way or, like you said, raise it way up. That's what we think.
Yeah. And honestly, obviously that will affect some people, but I don't think the vast majority of people would be super upset about that, except maybe some people earning over that amount. But the vast majority of the U.S. population isn't even hitting that wage cap at this point.
Right. That's
hitting that cap as a family. Right. And it's not a family number. So.
Right. It's an individual number. That's exactly right. No, that's a great point, Graham. While I'm just trying to think this through to what you said, there would be some people that might get upset about it because you would read the headline and say, oh, well, they've moved. Well, most people aren't hitting that number anyway, to your point. But the people that aren't hitting that number, it's probably going to end up helping the most, because they were, made a lower wage. And that wage cap that Richard referenced is actually for that higher income earner, that they would pay into that for every dollar they made, or up until a certain cap that may be higher, which will prolong Social Security.
Yeah. And I think one other kind of maybe misconception that some people have about Social Security is that for the wealthy, it's not a benefit. And I think from what we see, it's still a huge benefit, even to someone that has millions of dollars saved for retirement, because it's the backbone of a lot of people's income planning. So, I think that if maybe Social Security needs a new PR campaign before it does that. But I honestly, we believe it's one of the most, important programs for a retiree, if not the most important. So I'm obviously not hitting that wage cap at this point in my life, but at some point, if I do and go above that, I would be happy to pay more if I know it's going to be there for me in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay. So I guess the question are you ever too young to start thinking about retirement planning? We're talking about Gen Xers being on deck, but what about people even before that, Richard?
Oh, absolutely not. The younger you are, the more flexibility that you have to create the financial freedom or future that you want. So to answer your question, it's never too early to get the ball rolling.
It's like planting that tree, right? When do you plant a tree? Well, you need to, you should have planted it 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Well, there's statistics out there that prove this. If you aren't saving in your early years and you wait until you're, say 50s, you've missed a whole lot of compounding there that you cannot go back and get. So they always say, time is, one of our biggest assets. Compounding is right there too, which that correlates with the time. So I think it's really important. And I would kind of ask Graham, before you met us, were you thinking about retirement because I think you were doing some door dashing. Graham did a whole lot of stuff before he met us. But were you thinking about retirement at that time?
I was thinking about putting gas in my car for the most part. Not necessarily. I would say that my parents were good about teaching me, or at least, saying that, oh, you should do a Roth IRA and those things. But of course, as a high schooler, you just don't really do those things unless they force you to do it. So I was aware that, compounding is good. Compound interest is great. But I think it's just really hard to quantify what you're actually going to save by the time you get to retirement as a young person. But I can guarantee that number will be larger the earlier you start. So, I mean, there's no negative to doing it except just, starting out younger, being like, maybe it's money you need a little bit more today, but it's going to be even more beneficial in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do want to say this real quick. I hope this don't embarrass Graham. You were talking about your parents, and I'll never forget the first time I met your mom, which I've known your mom for a while, but she would talk to me more after we started working together. And she's like, Chris, she pulled me aside. Can you talk him into getting a haircut? That's what she told me. I swear. I don't think I ever shared that with you, but it was so funny. It was so funny.
That sounds like my mom.
I can't talk him into it. So will you?
Yeah. Basically, it was something like that. It's really, really funny. But I do want to say something really nice about Graham. Graham is, he's been with me for a while. He's had the privilege of sitting in a lot of meetings, and he's our delight. Does a phenomenal job for us. He's awesome on the radio. He's a likable guy, et cetera, et cetera. But he is going to, by the time you hear this episode, he will be officially graduated from college. So, kudos to Graham for working hard, being a radio show host with me, doing a lot for our client base, and then also putting his time in, graduating from college, and then he will test for his CFP come November. So this little guy is a hard worker. I know there's a lot of, you may classify the younger Gen Zs in a certain, way, or stereotype in a certain way. He ain't in that group. So right. he's a hard worker. So kudos to him and congrats to him.
Well, he does know more Beatles songs than almost any other person. So he's definitely not in the younger generation.
No, he's not. And he knows more about a lot of music. Like we've talked about music on the show before, and he just is, he's a pretty, he's an encyclopedia when it comes to that stuff.
I try to give as many, both financial recommendations and music recommendations to clients as possible. But, right. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is very exciting, to be done with school. I was talking to Emma about, I was like, I'm going to have to find something else to do with my evenings,
Yeah.
But no, it'll be nice.
It'll feel weird at first. Yeah.
Yeah, it will. It's a little strange to be like, oh, I never have to log into these websites again that I've been logging into for years, but it's very exciting.
I remember the feeling. The feeling. But congratulations. And if you would like to come in and talk to us and set up a discovery session, get retirement recommendations. We'll even give you some music recommendations as well. You can start that process by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
We'll be right back with the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Don't panic in uncertain market times. Let Cris Wallace be your trusted guide. Call Cris Wallace today at 256-937-2010 for expert advice and support. That's 256-937-2010.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer. We're so happy to have you along with us today. I am here with Cris Wallace, Graham Bauer, and Richard Constantine, all of WG Financial Group. And we're talking about the fact that Gen Xers aren't retiring in droves yet, okay? They're worried, though, about how ready they are for retirement. They're the ones that are about, 41, 56 years old, kind of in that range. But I want to go back to those even younger. If you're in your 40s and you still have, obviously, some time before retirement, Cris, tell us what they should be thinking about.
Yeah, so this is kind of like, this is a great show because it's right in my wheelhouse. I'll be 51, in just a few days, so I can't wait.
That's right.
So I am a Gen Xer for sure. And, one of the things that you can do is I do think you need to start looking ahead. I know that I've been doing it now for a few years, and I can say that probably one of the benefits to being in this industry was it opened my eyes to how I really should be saving. I think prior to that, I didn't have a good plan in place. And now I am fortunate because I'm exposed to a lot of this stuff and things that I should be doing. And I see other people and I learn from them as well, and then put that to what I've studied for and all of that. So one of the things you can do is go ahead and try to forecast that, get on an online calculator. You do have to be careful because I've had people come in the office and they'll tell me, oh, I used this so-and-so calculator online. You really need to understand how the values are being figured and where the data is being pulled from. I know that we do certain things in our planning process that is a little unique. And I believe that you do have to just be careful when you're using online calculators. The other thing, this is a really, really big deal. When you're younger, you're like scratching and clawing to buy a hamburger through the drive-thru. But as you age up, your income goes up. And what we tend to have happen is something called lifestyle creep. So the more money we make, the more money we tend to spend. And you really got to be intentional as you get a raise to make sure that you're allocating a certain percentage more over into your 401k. I'm not telling you to live, like this lifestyle where you can't enjoy your more income. There is a balance, but you got to be careful not to let your lifestyle creep so much that's eating up all of your increases and you're not saving some of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, again, there are Gen Xers who are about your age, Cris, in their 50s, retirement a lot closer for them. Tell us what they should be doing to get ready for retirement.
It's a perfect time to start planning, to be honest with you, just for all the things I said a few minutes ago. We are receiving calls, more and more calls from people in their early 50s, people that have had other jobs. They have old 401ks sitting around all by themselves, not being tended to, not being paid attention to whatsoever. We're receiving calls from a lot more people like that who are now very serious about looking at potential consolidation of accounts with a focus on, I can see the finish line. I want to make sure that I get there, and I want to know, how my retirement's going to play out. So one of the things that we think you should start doing is estimating your retirement income. Like I said earlier, you can take a look at your online calculators. You can come to us and we'll run a plan, for you. That's part of our process. You should start looking at your Social Security and estimating what that's going to be. Don't sit there and go, it's not going to be there. I'm not worried about it. I'm planning without it. Great. You can go ahead and plan without it, but you still need to go to ssa.gov and pull your statement, because I'm telling you, if you're in your 50s, I have no doubt that Social Security will be there in some capacity. So make sure you're estimating that today. So that's ssa.gov, set up an account, pull your statement down from that website so you can understand it. This is important for two reasons. For estimation purposes, you also need to make sure that they're including all of your income, because I've had people come to the office before they brought their statement and they're missing income in certain years. So you want to get that fixed, because that impacts your Social Security amount. Now that you're 50, so you're north of 50, it's important to start trying to take advantage of those catch-up contributions. So for 2024, you can actually put in an extra $1,000 in an IRA. So the max you can put in is $7,000. The $1,000 catch-up takes you to $8,000. For 401ks, for 403bs, 457s, those other types of company retirement plans, you can put in $23,000 a year, and then you got $7,500 of catch-up on top of that. Again, that takes you to a total of $30,500. So you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all of that, because you're going down the stretch. And I'm of the mindset, and we've said this on other shows before, and I remember Richard kind of shaking his head, I would rather oversave at this point, because if you can oversave, maybe you get out a year earlier than whatever your target year might be. So I'd almost rather oversave.
When you talk about saving, then where should those priorities be? Where would you suggest saving?
Oh, I would start always with the company-sponsored retirement plan.
Okay.
I mean, I've had more compliments back, and, I'm not saying that I'm not giving a testimonial here. I'm just saying that more and more people that I have worked with through the years have always come back to me and basically say, thank you for encouraging me to put more into my retirement plan. Because I think a lot of people we talk to, Richard, I know you've heard this in some of the meetings recently that I've sat down with you, will ask the prospect, hey, are you maxing the 401k? And the answer is always yes. It's almost always yes. But about half of those yeses, it's like, I'm maxing it, but what they mean is I'm maxing out to get the match. So they might be putting in like 5% to get the 5% match, but they're not maxing it out, and they have the ability to do so.
Like an 8%, they could do 8% or whatever.
They can put in as up to $30,500, and that percentage varies based on salary.
Okay, so the Gen Xers and the baby boomers, you think about them. They're part of what we call the sandwich generation, and those are the ones that are taking care of their parents, but they still have kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you have those financial responsibilities, maybe giving some caregiving duties to your parents or whatever, and then your own children, then how is that going to impact your own well-being for your future, Graham? I'll give that one to you.
This is something that we do see pretty frequently, and I'm definitely going to want to include Chris in this conversation because I know he's got probably some more firsthand experience here. But I did find this study from Merrill Lynch that I thought was really interesting that was kind of talking about, interdependencies in different generations of family. And they did some polling on, I think, a group of a couple thousand people in some different age ranges. And they found that 62% of people today over the age of 50 are providing financial support to family members of some sort. And of people, the percent who provided financial support to family members in the last 5 years, 68% are adult children. So it's generally, if someone is providing financial support to you, it's generally an adult child of yours. 26% was the next highest group, and that was grandchildren, and then parents and siblings are kind of in the lower groups down there. So, I mean, what that really shows us is that a lot of times, children and grandchildren do end up having to support parents in some capacity. The average amount that they spend yearly is about $14,900, they found. So almost $15,000 is the average that, 62% of people are spending every year to support a family member. One other kind of section that I thought was interesting there too, they also asked people that they asked the reasons why a family member is turned to for financial support. And the most common answer is that people think of them as the most financially responsible, which kind of checks out, I think, from what we see with a lot of people is, they might turn to the person that they think is the more financially responsible person in the family. And there's also about 60% of people that said they would be willing to retire later or work longer to support a family member. So, going back to kind of the sandwich generation that you were talking about, there definitely is some interdependencies going on, specifically with Gen X, because like we were talking about earlier in the show, life is really expensive right now. And a lot of people kind of support their Gen Z kids maybe a little bit longer than they have in the past. And at the same time, there's also people in the older generations, parents that might need some support. So, I mean, Chris, I'm just curious to get your thoughts on this, on these statistics and your experiences there.
100%. I mean, I've seen it. You and I've seen it in the office a lot. I do. Before I speak to my own personal situation, I do think that I think as a parent, you have to be careful how much you're willing to spend of your money to pay for college. I'm a big advocate of college. I finished a few years ago myself later in life. Graham, again, congrats to you for finishing early in life. There are economical ways to go to school. And, what we told our kids was you're going to do community college for the first 2 years because nobody cares where you took your math and English and your world history and all of that. Nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to look at that. And my son Caleb, he actually said to me, he said, Dad, well, I'm glad to go to community college because the math there is the same math I'm going to do at a higher university. So I think that's important that you think about college economically, and it is okay if the kids share in that responsibility. So one of the things that we told our kids again was, we're not going to put mom and dad's retirement in jeopardy to pay for all of your education if we can't afford to do so. Right. Now, fortunately, we've been able to help them along the way, and they haven't really had to shoulder any responsibility. But I'm also hitting all of my retirement savings marks along the way. So that's really important that I don't delay or put my retirement in jeopardy so that I have to work longer than I actually want to do so. Mm-hmm. Now, on the flip side of that, I've talked about on the show before, my mom doesn't listen to the show, so I'm pretty safe here. Mom wasn't able to save a lot of money. I was raised in a single parent home, so my mom survives solely on Social Security. Jen's mother, same situation, survives solely on Social Security. So Jennifer and I are supporting, to some degree, not fully, but to some degree, both of our parents. So we're supporting two different parents in different capacities there. And then we're also putting, kids through college. My daughter actually graduates high school this year. So congrats to my baby girl.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to the show, but I'll let her hear that little clip when I call her baby girl on the air.
She'll die.
She'll be embarrassed, one of the two. So we're about to put a third one into school at this point. Yeah. So that is the definition of a sandwich generation.
That's you.
And it can be stressful. It really can, just because you feel like you're being pulled in 300 different directions. You've got, in my case, I have a staff that I support, and we all support each other, from that standpoint. But then, if my mom needs something, if Jen's mom needs something, the kids need something, it's like, good grief, like, BOD, Bank of Dad, that's a real term.
BOD.
Yeah, BOD. So, but anyway, so yeah, that's, and when you're in the middle of this situation, I do think it's important that you really try to strategically make really, really good decisions. And Graham and I, and I'm sure Richard will run into them, and maybe he's already run into them. You've seen the ramifications of the parent spending too much or doing too much for the kid, that they are going to have to work longer. And like I said, we just kind of made a point to our kids to say, hey, we're willing to help, but you may have to pull some of the wagon too. And I think that's okay. I think that builds a lot of character and responsibility with, an up and coming Gen Z or even millennial. And then Graham touched on another point I want to touch on. I think kids are having to stay home a little bit longer nowadays because things are so doggone expensive. And I'm okay with that too. I'm totally fine with that as long as my kids that want to stay home are working and pulling their weight and they're working legitimate jobs and not sitting in the room playing video games. I'm totally fine with them staying home longer to prepare themselves so that it doesn't put them in a situation to where they have to go out and incur a lot of debt. So great segment there, Graham. Like you said, it speaks to me big time because I'm right in the middle of it. I'm walking those steps right now. So if you'd like to walk into the office and give us a call and set up your discovery session, 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
We're not done yet. Still more to come on the Rocket City Retirement Show. We'll be right back.
Want to feel confident in your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Take the first step today by visiting WGFinancialGroup.com.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Don't panic in uncertain market times. Let Cris Wallace be your trusted guide. Call Cris Wallace today at 256-937-2010 for expert advice and support. That's 256-937-2010.
Hi, we're so glad to have you with us today. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer, along with Cris Wallace, Graham Bauer, and Richard Constantine. So, Richard, this is the part of the show where we start with you, and we're going to have you give us a recap of some things that have happened this past week. We call it Richard's Recap. And exactly, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, thank you, Lou Ann. So one of the conversations that I had this past week really revolved around estate tax and what we can do to potentially avoid it. Currently, the estate tax limit for a single individual is $12.92 million. Right now, that is set to sunset at the end of 25, and right now we're anticipating that to drop back down to around $5 to $7 million. Where that still sounds like it's a lot of money, but in the past 10 years, we have seen a huge boom in not only real estate, but also the stock market as a whole. And so that's really increased people's their total net worth quite drastically. And so, Graham, I have a trivia question for you, since you are the encyclopedia.
Here we go.
So there's only been 1 year in the United States history that there has been no estate tax since 1914. Do you know which year that was?
Oh, gosh. Okay. I have heard this before. Funny enough, I think I heard this from you at some point, but obviously
it is a mind-blowing fact in my opinion.
It was, I feel like it was like 1989.
Hold
I
on.
might be off.
Yeah, so that's not it. That's not the year.
Oh, it's not. Okay, I'm off.
I don't remember the year, but it wasn't too long ago. And I'm going to take a wild stab here. It was 2010 or 2011. I did not Google this.
It was 2010, Chris. Ding, ding, ding.
Boom, because this is the gray beard, and I've been doing this a little while. So
do you know what significant death occurred in 2010 that makes one of the in my opinion, the greatest transfers of wealth tax-free?
Yeah, I don't remember who passed in 2010, but the joke in the office at the time when I worked for another firm, it was, man, if you're going to die, this is the year to die. Like,
yeah, so George Steinbrenner, the old Yankees owner, died in 2010, and that essentially saved his family over $600 million in estate taxes because he passed in that year. And so it's not just the Yankees, right? So if you look at what's actually being taxed in estate tax,
the rednecks too down here in Alabama.
What?
So sorry to step on you. It's the rednecks too down here in Alabama, right?
If you have a large parcel of land, I mean, we've seen like how expensive land is now, right? But over 55% of what's actually being taxed is unrealized capital gains, and that comes in a variety of different forms. But what I'm getting at is, with this estate tax limit dropping down quite significantly, a lot more people are going to start being impacted by that, right? And so if you really want to pass on your wealth that you've spent years and years building to your heirs without, Uncle Sam taking a 40% haircut with estate tax, you need to start implementing a solution on how you can do that effectively.
Yeah, I agree, Richard. And let me clarify. When I say the rednecks down here in Alabama, I'm full-blown redneck. I was born in Georgia. So when I say that, I'm including myself. So this is a really good point, Richard. Actually, in the show notes, you never include what you're going to talk about, and Graham doesn't either, which is kind of good because we can kind of have this, conversation in real time. And the question, I didn't know you were going to ask that. So anyway, everybody knows at the end of 2025, or at least everybody should know, that the tax code is going to sunset. When we think about taxes, we think about the marginals going back to what they used to be. A really good point on the amount of wealth over the past several years that has grown because of the market growth. And so there are people that are going to be bumping all up against the $5 million mark. Whereas, say, like 10 years ago, $5 million was a lot of money. And don't get me wrong, it's still a lot of money today. But when you factor in what goes into the gross estate calculation, your property, your retirement accounts, life insurance that's not in an ILET, all of that's going to go into the gross estate calculation. And that can cause some of that money to be taxed at the estate tax level. And I think that, it's an excellent point for a lot of people to be thinking about. And
and Chris, if you have, $4 million in your, retirement accounts, you have $1 million in life insurance, and then you have a $2 million house, right? Well, your $2 million, assuming that the state tax is $5 million and you're a single individual, your heirs are going to have to pay $800,000 in estate tax on that house. And so, the only options that they have is to either use all of their all of the life insurance money, or two is to start paying income tax out of your retirement accounts. And so, you're eliminating all of the liquidity that an heir has. And so it really is important to start having a plan for that.
Yeah. And just to be clear here, so a husband and wife actually will have, assuming it's 5, will have 10 million because there's something called portability. But even at that, I mean, there are more and more people that we sit down with that are in that higher demographic. They're in that higher net worth area just because of the retirement accounts and how they've grown. And then you throw some property in, maybe they've got a rental property at the beach. It doesn't take much to get to that $10 million if it rolls back to that. And I want to say something else on this. Like, a lot of things go into that gross estate calculation. So one of the ideas might be, well, I'll just convert everything to Roth IRA because it'll avoid that. And it doesn't avoid that doesn't avoid the gross estate calculation. Roth IRA money doesn't. What it does avoid is, as it passes on, you won't pay income tax. If you do an inherited Roth IRA as a recipient, then you can stretch it out for 10 years. But upon inheritance, you won't necessarily pay tax on that Roth account, but that Roth account does go into the gross estate calculation. So that's really important to know that converting helps, but it doesn't help from that standpoint.
Okay, cool. Well, very good. Thanks for that, guys. Very, very interesting.
Really good topic, by the way. Really good topic.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Richard. So, some analysts are saying that we are not out of the woods yet when it comes to our economy. How seriously do we want to take some of these economic predictions, Chris?
Yeah, here's the deal. Like I've said before on the show, somebody's going to be right at the end of the day. I mean, somebody's going to say recession, eventually go into the recession. And they say, well, I've been calling for a recession. So here we are. I called it. That was the first one. Everybody wants to be the person that calls the next recession, because then they can go down as Michael. What's the big short guy? Michael Berry, right? Michael Burry. Or Burry? Yeah, Michael Burry. I was close. You were close. Everybody wants to be Michael Burry, right? And so that, I do think that we're headed that direction. I just don't know how fast. And I discussed that earlier with the amount of stimulus that was put into the economy, how fast the Fed's raised rates. I just know at the level we're at now, I just think it's going to become harder for families to sustain normal lifestyle at where rates are today. We're going to start to see new car sales drop. We've already seen used car pricing drop and also used car sales dropping as well. It's just hard to afford something, especially a house or a vehicle. Shoot, vehicles now cost what old houses used to cost, right? Yeah, so it's just hard to maintain that. So I don't think that we have to live in fear, because if you think about this, now I've been in the industry a little longer than anybody on the show right now, and it's again graybeard or whatever, but I can remember when Obamacare was introduced, and one of the things that I heard all the time was, oh my gosh, it's going to bankrupt the United States. We're going to go into a recession and go spiraling into the recession. Meanwhile, the Feds kept the ZIRP policy in place, zero interest rate policy in place, and the economy continued to grow. The stock market continued to grow and continued to get larger and larger and larger. And I'm sure a lot of people during that time were still sitting in cash. So you don't want to be that person that's sitting in cash. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl sitting in cash, because you might outdo the market 1 or 2 years. But the longer you sit in cash, I think it's by year 5, the statistics are that there's 100% probability that the market outperforms cash. So if the outlook is long term, you need to stay invested. If you need cash for a certain amount of time for a purchase, say inside of about 2 years, then high yield savings is probably where you want to be. But don't sit in cash with long-term money, because you just don't know where the ups and downs are going to be. And like I said, in about year 5, it's 100% probability, according to statistics, that the market outperforms cash.
So I think the next question I'm going to ask is the fact that, you guys meet with people every single day, clients, couples. What are they most concerned about right now, Graham? What are you hearing?
I'll speak to my own experience with people and then let you guys jump in if you're hearing some different things. To be honest, as I was thinking about this, recently I feel like people have been a lot less antsy than I might expect them to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, still over the last 1 year, the S&P and the overall stock market, still up over 20%, even though we've seen a nice little pullback here, especially in this last month. But I actually think, at least from what I've been seeing, people are feeling a little bit more confident about that, even as, interest rates stay high. Inflation is not necessarily at where the Feds want it to be. But I have been, in these meetings talking people through it and just kind of feeling like, man, actually, in some respects, I would have expected people to be a little bit more antsy. I think some of that might have to do with election year. I hear that a lot from a lot of people that they, feel like because it's an election year, the market has to be good. And the data behind that is, there's maybe some little correlation, but there's more at play than just that 2008 was an election year. But, what are you guys seeing? Is that kind of been your experience recently? Or
what are you hearing, Richard, with the people you're sitting down with?
For the most part, it really revolves around things that are not in the market. It's really more conspiracy theory thoughts in a way.
We do hear that.
It's a lot of the major concerns are things that are you can't prepare for a nuclear invasion, right? If that were to happen, or World War III, right? Because like Chris, you were saying, the boy who cries wolf of everything is going to crap. He's going to be right once in a while. We just don't know when. So
yeah, the whole broke clock is right twice a day theory is. Eventually somebody's going to be right. So, it definitely, the conversations are different, Luann, than we were having, say, in 2022 when people were panicking. And of course, when the markets are dropping and the S&P's down nearly 20%, it is very frightening. But then I think what's happened here is now a lot of people have FOMO. They were sitting in cash and now they want to get back in. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out because over the last 1 year, the market's up, double digits. And now they say, well, maybe I shouldn't have gone to cash. And it's the whole conversation I just, finished having just a few seconds ago. So the conversations are a little bit easier. I do think that people are still concerned. I've met with a couple people that are saying that, hey, I still think a recession's coming. And I will say, yeah, I still think a recession's coming too. We just don't know when. And think of it like this, and I'll say this as we wrap the show up. In your investment accounts, as they grow, think of that as like buffer for the next drop. So let's say your account goes up by 10% and the market drops by 20%. And let's say you're invested just like the S&P. So you're up 10, market drops 20. You're only down negative 10 at that point because you built a 10% buffer. And that's how you have to think about your investment accounts. It's all long-term. The money you're going to need now, you need to make sure that it's in, shorter duration type stuff. You need to make sure in retirement you have an income plan. That's really, really important, that you have a sustainable income plan that is reliable. That's really important. And your long-term money can kind of act like it acted when you were 20 years old and you weren't even thinking about retirement. It can have a growth purpose to it. So that's how we typically look at things at the office. Luann, Richard, Graham, thanks for being here. Thanks for the listeners again. Thank you for the listeners that actually let us know when there's an air problem on a station. I get a lot of emails if there's a dual track show playing. Last week I think there was an overlap and I was able to get in contact with the station and we were back and forth and get that fixed. So we appreciate people listening, paying attention, actually emailing me. We appreciate you guys. If you'd like to give us a call to set up your discovery session, you can do that. 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010. I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week, and remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. Insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.